Right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our AY program entitled School in Life My Journey. I am your host, Enos Fraser, and I say welcome to everybody, our viewers in Trinidad and Tobago, our viewers around the world. But before we start, let us start with a prayer. So, head bows and eyes closed. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us out for another AY, Lord. Lord, as we go on through this program, help us to not only be leave with life lessons, important life lessons for school, but also important spiritual lessons, particularly for our students as they soon enter into a new academic year. Be with us for the rest of the Sabbath, Lord, in your name, amen. Right. We may now start with opening procedures with the AY aim, motto, and pledge. So AY aim, the Advent message to all the world in my generation. AY motto, for the love of Christ compels me, and AY pledge, present arms, loving the Lord Jesus. I promise to take an active part in the youth ministry of the church, doing what I can to help others and to finish the work of the gospel in all the world. Now, before we start the program, we are about to be blessed with a wonderful opening song.
The timeless theme, earth and heaven will pass away. It's not a dream. God will make all things new that day. Gone is the curse from which I stumbled and fell. Evil is banished to eternal hell. No more night, no more pain, no more tears, never crying again. Praises to the great I am. We will live in the light of the risen Lamb. See all around, all the nations bow down to see. The only sound is the praises to Christ, oh King. Slowly the names from the book are read. I know the King, so there's no need to dread. No more night, no more pain, no more tears, never crying again. Sing praises to the great I am. We will live in the light of the risen Lamb. See over there, there's a mansion prepared for me, where I will live with my Savior eternally.
Amen. What a beautiful song. So, so let's get into the program. Well, we are approaching the beginning of a new school year, right? We the last Sabbath before school starts back on Monday. Now, as we approach the beginning of a new school year, we must acknowledge that there are different journeys are being wrought for each student. For some of us, we are leaving. For the youngest of us, we are entering from preschool to primary school. So for Monday, will be first day in infants. For some of us, we entering from primary to secondary school. We just have completed SCA. Now we enter into a new world. And then for some of us, s- we have completed secondary school and we entering into university. And different journeys are being wrought. New challenges, new experiences. Some of you may be scared. Some of you may be intimidated. Well, this program, I have managed to. This program, we're going to give you some advice. Not me, but some experts from former students and teachers from varying backgrounds from different countries who are going to give you experience in how to navigate school academically and spiritually. So before we start, I'm just going to give you a bit of a slight overview for some of the major jumps. I'm going to focus from primary to secondary and secondary to university. So primary to secondary school, I well right currently I graduated from University of West Indies in 2021. Right, so I went through all the whole 14 years of schooling. Right, so I remember primary so I could talk about primary from secondary. From primary to secondary school, it feels like you're going to a different planet. You go from one teacher, for example, take this example, you go from one teacher to multiple teachers for different subjects. You know, remember I have one miss and she teach everything: science, social studies, creative writing, English language and maths and everything she doing. Now you have multiple teachers, right? And you just start timetable. Before you never really know. All you know, you just pack your bags for your different books. Maybe some primary schools have timetables, but from what I can remember, we never really had much of say a timetable. Then now we introduced our timetable, a schedule, different subjects. You'll be in different rooms. And instead of SCA exams, you have CXC coming up. Well, different. You might start studying that around Form 3 or so. Well, CSEC exam, really. Right? It'd be a different experience. It's like entering a whole new world. I can remember when I entered primary school just about a few months ago. So we entered September. I remember just a few months ago in year, I was still in my little short pants, running around playing catch on those little games and things like that. I still felt like a child, but when you enter secondary school, all of a sudden you start to feel this. You have this woman that you to put away the childish things and start looking to be an adult. Even though you're essentially the same age, most of you start around. I was still the same age as like say primary school. It felt different. Now you went long pants. One thing that pointed to me, teachers don't beat anymore. Like in primary, well, I know corporal punishment is not usually practiced in primary school, but my time they still used to beat, but now they don't beat anymore. But so that was my main thing I remember. I remember the first morning when my father dropped me off. I think I was around half 6 in the morning because it was in Toowoomba and school starts at 7:45. That was the next thing. Most school starts around 7:45 instead of the usual 8:30. Much earlier starting time. And I remember the first time I walked out the car and entered this new world and didn't really know anybody else except two other students. And, uh, and it took me a while before I see them. In fact, many other students had their parents working in them, but my father left me. He had other things to do. He had to my mother to school and all things. So I walking in, and the first thing hit me was the guard saying, "Hey boy, tell your father you're not supposed to drop it there in the back of the school because apparently you drop it over the back." I said the first thing. That's my first impression of secondary school. Getting corrected by the guard for being dropped off in the first place. And that's it. But my secondary school experience was good. Well, I went to Tunapuna Secondary School and had great teachers and great students and peers in secondary school. So from primary to secondary school, you start to learn you start to learn to take responsibility for in terms of your studies. I mean, that should be done in primary, but in secondary school, now you realize you're kind of on your own in terms of studies. Your parents could be there, right? They'll be right, could offer you support and all things, but in terms of getting the material done, Now, is there alone, you have to really take it upon yourself. If you want to move forward, you have to take it upon yourself to do the work for yourself. And the wrong form to your start, well, the wrong form to for me, I really start taking that upon myself. Start with responsibility, and especially right for form 1 to 3 is essentially the same cycles. Your subject will grow from 3 up to 14 subjects. You have multiple different teachers, right? Right. That's the most part about it. Multiple different teachers. I remember in school we used to carry comic game in schools. Now we had to use now we have carry closer change and other things like that. And things like that you start you going you're going through puberty, so you start to well as far as I concerned the students, particularly some of the fellas, maybe were trying to play man before they were man. Right? So you try to put away child, right? So that kind of ties into the putting away of childish things. And by form 4, the end of form 3, coming to form 4 or 5, you start to make serious decisions about choosing what career you want to go, right? Because you have to choose subjects because by the end of for form 4, those subject areas is what you'll be doing to go into CXC. So you have to start thinking seriously about what you're gonna do, right? As a career choice, yeah. So all by form, she has to start thinking about that. Okay, you're gonna have to choose subjects, and then you have to do well enough in the exams, in the two exams, you get selected to the subjects, or otherwise you have to do the subject outside. Then CXC, that's if you're exposed to the second major exams after SCA, and then you'll be going on from there, right? For 2 years, if you're doing science subject, right, you'll be doing labs, that be coming together. Or if you're doing a subject, you'll be preparing SBAs, right, school-based assessments, like big final projects, right? And you start a number of responsibilities. If you didn't do your lab good, you get a low mark and then you go in and start with a low mark. If you don't have PSB, well, you fail the whole subject. Well, according to CX rules, I don't know if it changed now. By that time, you have to start thinking seriously about yourself, your education. At that point, you really have to have your head. You have to really have to start having your head on. Seriously, one of the things that helped me, particularly for CX, I start. Well, one of the things that you really start doing, you start revising your work early. I heard people start as usually take long until you come down to the year. Like if CXC is in CXC is around May, June or January, I think, and now start studying. So you should be start studying from before, from the end of form 4, the beginning of form 5, you start preparing yourself. If you really are. So when CXC come, it can be less stressful because you don't have to cram in all the information that wasn't taken in on. I would to my mother, CXC exam was the most peaceful exam period I had in my life. I never lost sleep over the exam. Right there. Things change when you enter when you enter form 6, which is the next part. When you finish 5 years of school, there are two places you have to go: university or or you go on to further studies in form 6, and you do keep exams, which is essentially like CXC every year. Everything changed up. The work got a lot harder. I'm being honest, right? You had to do essentially see all the work you have up to CXC, compress the entire year and multiply it by 2. You alright? Because you have now unit 1 and unit 2 because you're upper 6 and lower 6, and then after that, you keep examination then to UE, and then you become the second big jump, secondary school to university. So at the end of your 7 or 5 years is now time to exit the sheltered waters of formal school and education. If some students say that the teacher don't care about them or anything, now you're going to enter the open seas of tertiary education. No mother or no mommy and daddy coming in, no parents, they no teacher calling their parents for concern, right? Right? In the sea of tertiary education, it can be very tempestuous with hazards and dangers. You're on your own. Is you have to keep your head. If you don't do it, the lecture fail you, and the lecture don't mind, depending on some, well, they say in different universities, the lecture, if you fail, well, that's your problem, essentially. And make it worse now is your money. If you fail, that means you do for a course now, you spend money, right? The workload could make C-second keep look like a weekly test. You can feel overwhelmed and lost. Sometimes, in the deepest point, questioning your career decisions, who you are, what you're doing, what you really meant to do this career. That's how bad it can reach. I know. Funny thing is in the midst of the storms, particularly for me, I saw God showing His hand to make a way. In fact, throughout this whole experience from secondary school to university, but very particularly university, I saw where God was leading me throughout, and that's one of the things I always say. one of the overarching lessons is putting God first. I never per se short change God for for education because from God always down flows. So for me, yeah, I was in midst of CXC yet still going my choir practice at the time we had a church choir at night. I was still doing my things for AY. Things around my Cape Unit 2 exams. I really got into AY, right? I started doing on in university. I keep that going along. And I even start teaching adventures and other things. And I always tell my mother, a year I say I'm gonna take a break because I say I'm a bit too tired and other things like that from Cape. So I take a little ease up from the church work and right after year two. And when I came back in year two, I said no. I came back there. I start joining the audio. I joined the audio visual department. I started in adventures. And and well, not adventures, but in AY and things. And you say, I realized I do the same. In fact, I did better. I think actually in year two. So I say, wait. So sometimes I hear those parents who say my child come when or can't come the church program. She has school. I say the church program. She can't take part in certain Sabbath program. Sometimes the child want to, or even maybe this my song a bit controversial. Say the child can't go Pathfinder camp and I saying well for the I say well first thing all the church programs is on a Saturday, so you won't be doing any work. Unless you're gonna like some parents I heard who push their child to do work on the Lord's Day to do that, right? Why it's on Saturday? It's not affecting your study time, and you will see that your child will come out a much better, more well-rounded individual. In fact, when you go to some interviews, you'll be hearing the same thing I'll be saying here, right? Anyway, that's enough of me talking. So I have some wonderful interviews from former students and current and former teachers, and even a pastor who's going to give you some of their own experiences and lessons. So we're going to start with the first one. His name is Enos Fraser. He's a Vincentian teacher, a teacher from the St. Vincent and Grenadines who currently teaches in Canada. So the producer could play this clip.
Hello, everyone. A pleasant day to you. My name is Enos Fraser. I taught in the Caribbean for 24 years and up to 2010, and then I migrated to Canada. Teaching is my passion, but I just have a few tips for you guys who should be going off to school soon. Having a good education is very important, but having an education academically is not of the best alone. We need to mix it with being spiritual. So our education must be academically inclined and spiritually inclined. So I would ask you, before you leave the house on morning, ensure that at least you read at least one chapter of your Bible. You must let God leave the house with you. Have a connection daily with God to face the world. And as you study, you have to balance your time with other stuff. You know, as the old saying, the old adage, too much of one thing make Jack or Jill a dull boy or girl. So balance your time, okay? Um, I must say you need to read and research ahead of your teacher. I remember being in school when I now migrated to Canada. I did early childhood education, and I had to read. I never really loved reading, but I know reading is power. So I used to read a lot and read ahead of the teacher so that before she could open her mouth and ask a question, sometimes I pop the question before. And it kind of gave the person mark in your papers as if you know the stuff. So more you know the stuff, it put you at a better view in her light light when she marking you. Um, One more other thing is that other than keep abreast of your schoolwork, students, you need to study what you like. Presently, I'm a JKSK teacher. I've taught for all those years, and I was like from I think in Trinidad the system is standard one. In St. Vincent we would say junior one. Taught from junior one up to about senior three, whereby you have those who didn't pass the common entrance, they put them somewhere else. And I have never knew that I would have enjoyed kindergarten as how I'm enjoying it. I didn't know. So you have to study what you like. Teaching is my passion. I like it. And I must say this to parents is that sometimes we tend to look at skilled jobs as bad. Whatsoever your children want to do, support them. If they want to become a mechanic, support them. If they want to become a tailor or maybe a carpenter, a mason, whatsoever they want to become, support them. If they want to be a doctor, support them. A nurse, support them. Whatsoever they want to be, you support them. Now, students, you need to let your parents be a part of your life. Talk to your parents, your guardian, maybe a trusted Christian relative or friend, or a peer about your day. Because as you relate, you feel the weight of what is affecting you, or sometimes you can let someone else enjoy your joys with you. Okay, maybe you did well on a project and you need to talk to somebody so that they could laugh with you and shout. Get somebody who you could talk to. And for parents, I need to let you know, as a parent myself, we have to keep abreast of our children. And in Canada, schooling starts from the early years. Well, I think the nurses and doctors would say from in the stomach, okay, from in the womb. But in Canada, it's from kindergarten up to grade 12. After grade 12, depending on your results, what you are inclined to, you could go to college, or then you go to university. When I migrated to Canada, I did early childhood education, as I told you. I did a year in autism because I had a number of students who seemed to had autism. So in order for me to deal with them, I had to study about it. And later on, I tend to understand it and know it's not really the student's problem, okay, why this thing is happening to them. I did my undergrad in history. So presently I'm a RECE, which is Registered Early Childhood Educator, and I'm a OCT, which is Ontario College of Teachers Certified Teacher. Now, I must let you know the field in Canada is ripe for workers, especially in the health sector. So you students who inclined to become nurses or healthcare providers, it's a field that is ready and ripe for you. All you have to do is prepare your mind, body, and soul. And I must say to the parents who may be listening, our children, parents, are our investment, so we have to invest into them. And you students who are listening also, you children in school, you have to remember that you are the human resource for your parents. So do not let them down. Study like you've never studied before. I'm not saying study to go crazy, but study hard. Work hard at what you're doing so that you can make them proud and you would be able to help them in later days to come. Maybe when they're getting older, maybe they have some health problem and you will be able to chip in and say, let me go and help mommy or daddy because they were there for me. So my real main tips to you is to get a good education, not only academically, but spiritually also, so that you could be well balanced, as they would say, you could holistically help yourself in years to come. Have a pleasant day and thank you.
Right, so that was Enos Fraser, a teacher currently in Canada. I like what he said. Put God first. Because sometimes I feel like in education, we want to put God second or third. Look at that. He said, read your Bible before you start. That's one interesting thing. Read a chapter every day. I remember I used to do that back in primary school. Not primary school, secondary school. I used to read a little bit of a piece of the Bible every time I come up from the school. And that's help you. I think Sister White actually commented on that. And White, she commented on reading the Bible and how you can expand the student's mind, in particular, you understand. But that shouldn't be surprising, particularly when you take it in the Word of God. Next thing he said, read the material before you teach her. Something you normally hear from university, but it's very helpful, particularly when you prepare for a class. You can understand. It makes it a lot easier for when you take from my experience, makes it a lot easier for when you're trying to understand what the lecturer is talking about. Better have a good foreknowledge, right? Support your child in whatever career path they want to pursue. Yes, another next part I like as well. Sometimes, particularly in the Caribbean, we tend to, or even in I think in the Western world, particularly North America, there are problem right now. The parents only pushing the children to do high level fields like doctor and law and engineering. And why those are useful fields? You see, at the same point, they realize there's a need for persons for trades like mechanic, plumbers, right? Trade persons is actually, I remember one of the men who used to conduct dirty jobs, right? I think Micro talks about that the shortage of trade persons and also how well and lucrative the industry is, and right? And maybe how we tend to in the West, right, and Trinidad, maybe how we tend to sometimes look down. If you hear your child not bright, or the common trope is like your child not bright, let him go on do the trade. Well, as a son of a tradesman, I can tell you a tradesperson, any skilled tradesman, as far as I can concerned, is almost as skilled as the engineer, and particularly understanding how to do a trade. Right? I've seen, right, whether it be a carpenter or a mechanic, I learn to appreciate the skill they have to solve problems that to me, right, could be insolvable. Like when you're fixing your car and what to do, or putting up a step. I wonder, I say, how we going to put this together? And I watch them men come about putting on all the wood and everything and all the maths, the level of mathematics sometimes involve the calculation. So if a child wants to pursue a career, a mechanic or a technician, for let's say you want to become an AC technician or or anything like that. Maybe you want to become a nurse, maybe you want to become a hairstylist, right? Or even say you see you want to become a food vendor and have his own little food stand, right? You can do it. And in fact, my Caribbean studies teacher told me a time about a story about a man who used to sell coconut. And right here, because we're discussing career paths and other things is that when we're in sixth form, I think it's right, so we're in the final, in upper six, the final year. And she told us about a man who sold coconut and managed to make enough money to buy his own Hilux, right? And it was an expensive vehicle. Managed to come financially sustainable. Now he have his own Hilux now and the van and so that tell you how well he doing. Or even our next friend I had who grandfather was a farmer but he had a Prado, a Toyota Land Cruiser. That's an expensive vehicle, right? So different career paths, right? So support the child career path. Sometimes you mean to say, well, my parents never forced me into any career. Forced neither me or my brother into any career, right? So in my never say come a teacher like me or anything like that, or come a doctor or engineer. No engineer. Actually, no. She told us do not become lawyers. She's called lawyers liars. She said don't come. So, but right, and of course that may be true. There are many good lawyers out there. So that's the only one maybe. But besides that, um besides that, right, and I like that what you said. Study hard work does bring results, right? I see it from experience. Nobody wakes up in the morning. A time I had a bright friend of mine, back in secondary school, and I say, "Mommy, he's so bright. He doesn't have to read or pick up a book." He say even the brightest man has to read a book once. To understand? So study hard, right? Right, push hard, right? Hard work does bring results. Find someone to talk to education. Well, in terms of I like what you said in terms of talking with the parents. That's good. Yeah, tell your parents how they was. If you have a subject that giving you trouble, or a subject, tell them both the good and the bad news. Nothing wrong with, right. I always told my mother back in right, even secondary school. You told my mother whether a good day or a bad day. Sometimes a course may or a subject may give you trouble, and sometimes she may even offer a solution. She may not be technically versed in the course, but she may offer some solution or even support. Share your good, right? So if right, maybe your parents or sometimes or your uncle or somebody in church who you trust, right? Right, or in your community or somebody who you look up to, who they could talk to. Sometimes it's good to share and they can help you vent, even offer solutions sometimes to dilemmas. Don't just keep it to yourself for shame or anything like that. I learned that good news and bad news, right? Right, whether it be good or bad, share to your parents. So right, so that's for that's Enos Fraser. So now we're going to go on to our next person who is right. She is also a retired teacher as well. Well, she spent most of the time she taught in different schools and both in Trinidad and I believe in St. Vincent. So we're moving on to Candice Fraser Franklin. Yes, Candice Fraser Franklin. Right. So what is the teaching experience?
Well, I spent about 36 years as a teacher, and I have taught different students between the island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and in Trinidad and Tobago. Some may not have been successful at school when you were teaching them, but you know, as a student or as a teacher, let me first say, teaching is not just about the subjects or getting passes, but it's giving students that extra push that they need so that even though they don't make it in CXC or CAPE, they will have something that will help them to go on later on. Something that they can fall back on if things doesn't go the way that they wanted it to work. So
That's the experience you have as a teacher?
yes, it's a good experience because when you teach your students and later on you see them, you feel happy. Like as I told you before about the two students that I met on two different occasions. One was a 50-year-old man who was doing theology, and he was very grateful. And I said, boy, well, I could not believe that when I was teaching you that we were just maybe 10 years apart. And then this other student who is a businesswoman has extra food, and she was putting her vegetarian products in the deep freeze. And I didn't even remember her. And her experience is that when she left school, she did not leave with the passes that she would have liked to have. But she leaves school with that determination that I have to get ahead. I need to be motivated. So that is part of education. That motivation to get ahead.
And what any advice you give the students who went through the new term or semester this year?
Well, for students who are going to school now, you know, it's good that students are excited about school. And parents, it's the parents' job to keep that excitement there. You must be excited about school. Other than the new bag and the uniform and the new environment, there is homework to be done and there is study time. And you have to keep that in its proper perspective. So you must know that when you get home and you get something to eat and you shower and things like that, then you have your homework to do. Homework is very important, especially for math students. And study time is very important too. So there are two times you must have. You must have a study time. Go back and do work that you did the day before or that day before you start another day. And you must do your homework that the teacher assigned.
And most importantly, what is spiritual advice you give to the students?
Read your Bible, pray every day. Very simple like that. Read your Bible, pray every day, and you will grow. There's not a man or a woman who read the Bible and pray who has not been successful. I could take you on that one. That is a positive.
Anything else you want to add for our listeners or viewers?
Is that parents, you know, what I observe in our modern day parents is that they drop the ball too often. As Christians, sometimes we drop the ball, and once the child gets secondary school, you feel, oh, the child is big enough and she couldn't be on her own or he couldn't be on his own. But no, you still need to guide them. Remember, there are some other educators who we studied and talked about who said they did not know anything in the book, but they always made the child have to do the work, even though they do not know what the child is doing. Our parents today are more privileged. They know what is going on. So they have to keep monitoring the students and make sure you don't have to be a nagging parent, but you must be a cooperative parent, a parent who they can call to if they are in difficulty. Then therefore they will have no need to hide anything from you, and you will always be at the top of your game.
So that's all you have to say?
Well, more or less, nothing more really. Nothing more, unless you have any other question you want to ask me.
I have no questions.
And just to say congratulations to the students for starting, and it's a new age for teachers out there. These new students are very challenging. So it's a digital age. It doesn't take no for an answer. Don't shut them down. Allow them to explore. Eventually they'll understand where you're coming from. Many of my students couldn't get along in the classroom, but once they leave the classroom, they realize you were their best teacher.
Okay, well, thank you, Auntie Jean. Miss Candice Franklin Fraser.
Fraser Franklin.
Fraser Franklin. Right, Candice Fraser Franklin, teacher of 36 years.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Candice Fraser Franklin. So that was an interview, right? She was my aunt and she teach me. She said she teach maths 36 years in different schools. Things she taught in various schools, and I love the little simple spiritual message. Read the Bible, pray every day, and you'll grow. It kind of sums up what the previous commenter said. She talked a lot about parental support because and it's a common misconception, I believe. As soon as you your child reach secondary school, you think, oh, he's a big adult, he could take care of himself. Yes, I talked about you started taking the one, but you still, as a parent, keep in touch. You may not understand where your child education is, but that support there, and keeping in mind what he may be going through, he or she may be going through, is important. So yeah. So right, be a cooperative parent. Don't just knock your child. So parent, don't just knock your child if you see him, like see marks in a particular subject. Don't just say, oh, your marks going so low and all things that. Maybe try to reach your child, try to understand him, as I think as Miss Franklin said, just try to hear them out, right? And that one thing she said about giving the students the extra push, the motivation, right? Sometimes as a teacher, that's one of the greatest things a teacher could leave for a student, not just the academic knowledge or anything, but that motivation, right? And I think as a teacher, right, as a student, a former student, that says that some of the most impactful teachers are those who did that, motivated the student to go on, even beyond even while maybe out of the class, long after the class, the impact of what they have on the student life, or have on my, or what the impact of the teachers, what those teachers had on my life, still continues to drive me towards today. And look how the front student, look at the motivation turned out. Like the man who did his theology major, or the businesswoman in particular, who, while she didn't have gotten all the CXC results, she still said she wanted to do something in her life. And look, she making little food products, selling in a grocery, right? So that's motivation. It kind of reminds her to support the child in whatever career path, right? She found a career path in business and making foods and vegetarian food, and look where she is now. So those were two perspectives from two former teachers and students, as former teachers, and as well as former students. So now we're going to stop here with a small musical interlude brought to you by Chord.
There's no need in standing up for the right, unless you're gonna stand up against the wrong. Tell me how you're gonna ever stop being weak, unless you make your mind up to be strong. Well, you got to do right, 'cause it won't be long. It won't be long. Bum, 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 bum. Let me tell you how it's easy to hate your enemies, and it's just as easy to love your friends. Tell me you would have to love a life. The Bible tells you you got to let the love of God come in. Well, you got to do right, 'cause it won't be long. It won't be long. Don't you wanna love him better? Don't you wanna love him more? Can't you hear your Savior knocking? He's at your door. Don't you wanna make haste to meet your Maker before you got to deal with the Undertaker? He will take you right now, right now. The Bible is fulfilling. You got to do right, 'cause it won't be long. It won't be long. You gotta do right. Oh, live your life. You got to do right. Oh, live your life. You got to do right. Oh, live your life. You got to do right. Right. Well, you got to do right.
Ah, yes, you got to do right. Right. So we have heard from two former teachers. Well, one former from two teachers. Now we're gonna hear from two exclusively two students. One is a pastor, currently a pastor, and the other one, for those in Aruka, is a familiar face. So we're gonna start with Stevenson Halls, Pastor Stevenson Halls.
Happy Sabbath. My name is Pastor Stevenson Halls, and I'm the pastor of the Laramine district of Seventh Adventist Churches. And I'm here to share with you my education journey. I was born and grew up in the rural village in South Trinidad called Buenos Aires. I still live there. And I went to the Buenos Aires government primary school. In 1975, I sat what we called then the common entrance exam. And being successful, I was placed at the Point 14 Junior Secondary. Those schools at that time did not have the stigmas that we associate with them today. And it was a joy and pleasure to be able to be afforded an opportunity to have or pursue secondary education. There were 3 or 4 secondary schools available for the entire southwestern peninsula's student body. And it meant that there was little or few opportunities for the majority of us to have secondary education. With the construction of these schools, it meant that there were great opportunities for us to have secondary education, and we fondly embraced that opportunity. In 1975, in the first semester or term, I fell from a tree one Sunday morning and broke my right arm. And that was a very consequential fall that still affects me even up to today. It meant for the next 3 years that I spent at the Point 14 Junior Secondary School, this fall will have an adverse effect upon me and my educational pursuit. What had occurred with the fracture is that in the corrective measure that was taken, for one reason or the other, one of the major bones in my hand had stunted and the other grew. So it meant that my hand became semi-deformed, and a person that was at one point in time one of the 2 representatives that represented Buenos Aires Primary School in penmanship was now almost deemed to be unable to write. For an 11-year-old, this was a very traumatic experience. And my handwriting had come to the place whereby it was even difficult for me to understand what I had written on the paper after I had completed whatever assignment I was given. It meant that I fell back very badly because not necessarily not understanding the work, but not being able to place it on paper and get good scores and so on. And for maybe one reason or the other, I became distracted, although I believe that I was better than average student. In 1978, I left Point 14 Junior Secondary School and I went to the Superior Senior Comprehensive. I had hoped to pursue my studies in the technical area whereby I would be able to do welding. But I was not placed in that. I was placed in the business academic class. Looking back, I would not say that I did not have the ability to do this body of studies, but it was not my first choice. Certainly, I wanted to do technical studies, especially do welding. I was not very successful, though I do not regret ever being placed there, because some of the knowledge, the body of knowledge that I received, I still have it and still use it even today. But I was not successful in the terms of being able to get a full certificate, as the case may be, at the Superior Senior Comprehensive. I would say I basically left with nothing. I later went on to do what I had hoped to do at the Trimmer Trade Institute, whereby I did a 9 months course in welding and got A and B plus in the 2 disciplines of welding that I was taught. I then went on to open a garage and did welding for a time as a private contractor, and later got employment with the Superior Regional Corporation, first as a laborer, and working through the ranks, got involved in trade union activities, also got involved in other disciplines at the corporation. And persons would later share that they could have seen that I was not the regular worker at the Superior Regional Corporation. I had much more talent than the work demanded, and that really and truly that I in a sense I was a misfit. I could do the job, but I was underachieving. I never really stopped dreaming of achieving a full certificate in academics, but I got married, I had children. I got married in 1988. I had children. They went to secondary school and so on, and then went to do tertiary education. At least the 3 out of the 3, the first 2 were now at tertiary education level. When again the opportunity arose and the call came by God, and I must say that this call had been given to me on numerous occasions throughout the years, as persons would have heard me preach and do certain teach lessons and so on. They would ask me to go to USC and study, or CUC at the time, but for one reason or the other I would hesitate and resist. But there came this time in 2012 when the call seemed stronger than ever before, and I finally acceded to the request, and I just saw God working and just directing my path into the study of theology at the Southern University of Southern Caribbean. Just to back up a bit, I would say that that would have started the preparation, though I did not know would have started before, because I decided to do some home studies and get my full certificate. So I did not go to a school, but I studied at home and got some assistance with my children. And I had at the time in 2012 5 subjects. All right, that would have given me the qualification to do these theology studies at the University of the Southern Caribbean. I went there, and normally a 4-year study regiment took me 3 years and a half, though I was working full-time at the Superior Regional Corporation, because I really dedicated myself, pushed myself, sometimes overloaded in semesters, did summers and so on in order to complete. Because when I went there January 14, 2013, I decided I would be leaving come this the end of 2016, when at least by August 2016, and I did achieve my goal by doing that. And when I sometimes I remember that some of the professors were surprised because they knew that I was working full time, and when I said that I was preparing to graduate, they had to go back and look at the files to make sure. I never got my GPA never dropped under 3 at the school, and I have made at times the honors list and what have you, even though I had to do my job now was paperwork at the corporation, and I had to travel all these miles, at least 2.5 hours of driving back and forth, which will make it about 5 hours of driving total every day. And I was able to graduate in 2016 as planned. I know that my journey was not successful because of me per se, but because of God's hand in my life. And I'm here to tell you, children of God, no matter what your age may be, yes, this is AY, it's young people, but even some of us who are young at heart, it's never too late to achieve your goal. Go for it. Believe in yourself. Trust in your God-given ability, and know that if God has a plan for your life, nothing can derail it. God bless you really good. In Jesus' name.
It's never too late to achieve your dream. That's impressive, right? From very young age, having his hand broken. You might, for some people, might say, "Well, as you know me, having been set back for so long, right? He never let himself, right, and having to go through all that. He go into business school, didn't make out, fall behind his grades, yet, right? Yet he never, with all the myths of what happened in his life, he never gave up. He went technical school. He's titled. Look at all that, and yes, maybe he had a full married man, but he got his certificate and he got his degree, and now he's a pastor. Might say, well, I think that's a perfect story. You really never too late to achieve your dreams. Yes, he may be a full adult, but he never really too. Yes, maybe a full adult, but it's never really too late. And that's inspirational because for some of us, we may have a minor setback. Let's say in university and you fail a course. Let's say you fail an important course, like in UA, if you fail courses, we had a few courses in UA that if you fail, well, in my degree in mechanical engineering, if you fail if you fail engineering drawing, right? A course like for example, you have to start. Right? There's no summer, so you have to start back. Oh yeah, some of us may feel despondent, especially if we come on a preset that we're supposed to be, especially if we come from our home or environment, or let's say come from a school where only the best is expected. So sometimes you may feel a bit discouraged, right? Well, hold on, right? Well, look at that. You might take the example from Pastor Halls. He broke his arm, he got set back. You could say his whole school life he got set back. He might have a different trajectory if his hand had broken, but well, we don't know. But he never stopped, and he never stopped achieving his dream. That's one thing, he never gave up on his dream and he always pushed forward. So he went and he found himself and he picked himself back up, got his degree, got married, she get a nice work, and she get an employment, started welding, started working in corporation, got married, had children, and then he finally got his CXA and passes and got his degree. So it's a good inspiration. Never be too late, because I know for many uni students, you will face many challenges and setbacks, right? Some of them may seem fatal, and some may be critical. You might be wondering if I could maybe make it through. Then who knows? For some of you sitting down, maybe that might be going through your head. Will I be able to make it through this new school? Will I be able to make it to make up these students? Next time something happened to me, will I be embarrassed? Will I look like a fool in front of everybody else? What happened to my life? Will my life be over? Well, this example shows that your life is not over unless you want to make it over. And if you don't give up on your dreams, you eventually, by God's grace, importantly by God's grace, you can make it. So we're gonna move on to our next person here, right? She is she graduated. She's a current. Well, she graduated from the law school from the Human Law School, University of West Indies, right? And she currently own her own food business called Rollies, right? So we're gonna introduce you to Leah Williams as she tells her story on her academic journey.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ali, and I was asked to share a bit about my academic experience, my academic journey, any tips, any advice that I may have for persons who are studying, and what spiritual lessons that I would have learned throughout the way, or how I was able to tie in my spiritual relationship to my academic journeys. So I will just give you a briefing from my early childhood care to my adult life in terms of studies. So after I completed primary school, I went on to St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph, which was my first choice. So at convent, I had a really great experience because I think that I was an all-rounded student in terms of me being involved in every different activity that the school had to offer. So as much as I loved learning, and as much as, I was the type of child that would not be able to enjoy myself, like having a social night if I had an assignment to hand up, I just couldn't. I very much involved myself in other things that the school had to offer. So I was involved in sports, involved in extracurricular like the choir, parent group, the school band. So that was one thing. So always remember to remain balanced. As much as you would like to achieve a particular grade, or you would like to be a scholarship winner, or even have your name listed on the merit list, you need to have balance, because even a step further now, you tend to find out when you're applying for jobs or even to university and colleges, now they want to see your extracurricular activities, especially in faculties is where there's a high number of students who want to do, like for instance, medicine. Now they were looking at extracurricular activities. Before it just used to be grades, but now other things are playing a role in terms of them selecting you. I did not have any major struggles in school. The issue of the Sabbath was raised by one of my friends. I remember in Form 4 when we were in physics class. So, physics is like one of those really hard subjects. And they raised the issue of, you missing all the time to get like a lab done. Where do you find the time to basically meet up with everybody else and have the work completed? Because I never once had incomplete work to say, I did not handle an assignment on time, or I needed to ask for extra time. So that had to be the hand of God guiding me, whereby I was able to hand up and sometimes even finish before the other students, despite having shorter time, losing a day, as they would say. But that was really, to me, the clear hand of God, right, to show that, it may seem as though my child is disadvantaged to you who might be, addicted to schoolwork, or, you can't lose a minute. But look at how she's performing just as well, or sometimes even better than some of you other students, right? So this wasn't like a boastful way, but to show that God always comes through for you. So don't worry. Don't ever reach a place where, you're tempted to break this Sabbath to study. Don't ever reach there. And I really thank God that never happened to me. It was never a temptation. I did a mix of subjects in secondary school because I was unsure of what I wanted to study. So at CXC level, we had to do a language. So I did French, which I absolutely hated, but I did French. I did history, literature, geography. I really love geography. And I really know your maths, biology, physics. So I did those, and I think that it went pretty well for me. Then I went on to Form 6 because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I would always recommend persons who Form 6 because I find that it grounds you, it matures you, and it gives you further insight into the subjects that you think you like. Because Form 5 physics was nice, Form 6 physics was a totally different story. Like, I was completely lost. I was fighting for my life in that class, right? I did physics, literature, geography, and I will, of course, biology as well, right? So I did those subjects in Form 6, and it went pretty well. So I thank God for that. And then I went on to do law at UE. So doing law in UE, I would say that the thing is people would think that degrees like law and medicine are really hard, but any degree is hard, right? It's all a matter of how you apply yourself to it. So it is a lot of reading, yes, But if you read throughout the semester, you will tend to find that it's a lot easier than if you wait until exams or end of term to study. So, after the exam, then you sit back in retrospect and you watching the paper and you was like, this exam was real easy, this work was real easy, the literal issue was me, right? So don't ever make that be your portion, which would always happen to everybody because I feel like people never study the way they should, but always try to do a little bit throughout the term, which is what I did for courses that I liked. So I realized when the exam came, like even before the exam, I barely needed to study, and it was like crazy to me because it's like you need to study, exam coming up, but like I was just reading and like nothing was sticking, and the real reason why I felt like it wasn't sticking is because I already knew it so well. So I of course aced those exams, so it's not as hard as it may seem, right? That remember to pray a lot, keep a relationship with God. Like don't ever forget to pray because you're studying and you feel like you have so much to do, you can't go out to Wednesday night or half night of prayer, or you can't contribute anything, you can't help out to the uniform department or AY. That is a myth, right? Give, as they say, give to God and he will give to you, right? What else would I say? I would say that as Christians we need to find a balance between academics and our spiritual life, because some persons may feel like, as may think, sorry, don't be educated at all. God is coming just now. You don't want your mind to be focused on these worldly things. And some may become so engrossed in academics, they may start to become gods unto themselves. They may start to forget about God. Everything's about self. So you need to find that balance where as you edify yourself, you get more knowledge, you improve yourself as an individual. So because we want to live good quality lives and we want to be educated, as well as we need to know what is going on, we need to have like some skill, as well as you pay attention to spiritual things and you spend time with God. So that is my, my very brief summary on my academic experience and any spiritual advice or tips that I could share. Of course, if you or anyone is interested in law or any other degree, I need any questions answered or any advice, you would always reach out to me. Thank you.
Yes. For a brief summary, yes, I found a lot of great insight. I love what she said about finding proper balance between school and other activities. Sometimes you may have the concept in your head that you can't do anything. Work, 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 work. Forget about activities now, right? Now, right, and don't do any outside activity. But she have a point in terms of balance, particularly with church activities. I think that I said before, I found when I did my church activities, when I put God first, did my church activities and then my academics my academics never suffered. And that is and true in terms of other extracurricular activities. Now I would tell you know yourself. So know if you know you're a person who can do 10, 15 activities, well do what you could do, but still try to find a balance. In fact, in my sixth form that I went, they had us fill out. They had the students be able to fill out some hours. These extra hours. These right. These hours they usually tend to have. So the students was required to go out and do some extra activities in the community hours, right? And the students are supposed to report to it and bring back to the teachers. It's school requires. So when you're making your transcript for university, you could say you did this and that because I remember I saw on YouTube I have a student talk about that to get into certain classes or schools or even clubs or societies like those, right? Or other societies, you have to have a certain balance of activities. It can't just be all brains and nothing else. It can't just be one sided. And even my technical drawing teacher, who was the vice principal at the time, told us that find something when it because it be you versus 100 other persons with the same qualification, you have to differentiate yourself. In fact, my uncle told me about a friend he had who got her employment because she used to play. I think she used to play the piano, play a musical instrument, and that was took the job for her because everybody has the same qualification, but the final use would maybe turn in the head. Maybe when you have a special program, she can play for us. So you never know. So balance yourself because, particularly in the world of work now, they want more balanced people who could, well, because those behind who could just be more or less the basic academics. Otherwise, you just be a computer. So you have to put that and then put God first. Look at this, right? Never compromise. The same time experience in UWE I had myself, but all the group projects we have, we never had to submit a group project late. We always submitted early. right? And even the group, and even those projects where I had a major part to play, I never compromise in the Sabbath. Whatever, right? I'll leave them with what they have to do. I'll usually just leave them with whatever information they have to, and I will take my Sabbath, and I will keep the Sabbath. And usually when I come back, we work there, and we manage to finish on time. So never put God first, never compromise, even if the temptation is strong, right? Sometimes even from the lecturer who may want to have Saturday classes and other things. Put God first. Once right? Just remember how Daniel experienced in Babylon. He and his friends, they went to school, which is the next point too. About some nothing wrong with education. When Daniel went to Babylon, God never told them not to learn. They went and learned, they got the education, but they put God first. They never eat the king's food. They ate the pulse. And look how God does them. They were 10 times wiser, 10 times stronger, right? And 10 times healthy, and they become prime ministers of the land and other things like that, right? So that's really what they say. So I like Alia's story. It shows that you can have excellence. It shows that you can have excellence with putting right with God, right? And putting God first that would never hamper you from having an excellent career. No, she's a law student. Well, she graduated from the law, and right, and well, I never did law in UWI, but I thought there was I know it's not an easy degree. In fact, no degree in university easy. But I still found her story insightful, right? And something to consider, particularly parents, too, when you're guiding your children, particularly when you're going into further education, about being well balanced. Now, as a leader, push for well balance. I'm having a well balanced education. I'll make sure my program has a well balance of pieces and special music. So now we're going to have a special music from Carissa Thomas.
All things work for our good, though sometimes we don't see how they could. Struggles that breaks our heart into, sometimes blind us to the truth. Our Father knows what best for us. His way is not all wrong. So when our pathway goes dim and we just don't see Him, remember you're not alone. God is too wise to be mistaken. God is too good to be unkind. So when you don't understand, when you don't see His plan, when you can't trace His hand, trust His heart. Trust His heart. He sees a master plan, and He holds a future in His when you can't see his plan, when you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. He alone is faithful and true. He alone just know what best for you. God is too wise to be mistaken. God is too good to be unkind. So when you don't understand, when you can't see his plan, when you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. When you don't understand, when you can't see his plan, when you can't trace his hand, trust his heart. Trust his heart.
Right, trust his heart. That's a wonderful song and actually quite relevant, particularly as we go into educate as we head into school. Sometimes you different experience and challenges you may face. You may be wondering where God leading you. So you really have to trust his heart. Well, we have seen the perspective from from two teachers, two students, but now we're going to hear from a man who going to share his story from both sides of the spectrum. I'll give it to none other than Matthew Alexander. So, right, your teaching experience, how was that for you?
Well, exciting. It's something that was my first love. Teaching has always been my first love. I started as a teenager, 18 years old in 1980, in February 1980. I just turned 18. And, you know, I spent the first few years in Tobago, small church school, 2 classes in one we were teaching at that time. And it was, you know, enjoyable. I enjoyed, you know, my days in Tobago. Came to CUC, spent another 2, went back to Tobago, spent another 2, and then back to Trinidad. So it has been enjoyable.
Any highs or lows?
Well, I would say mostly highs, you know, and the high about it is when you see the children that you teach, when you see them achieving. You know, I remember seeing Pastor Peter's daughter, Leandra. After years, I didn't see her, and then, you know, I got this big bear hug. You know, I turned around and it's Leandra. She's not Dr. Peters, and I taught her in school. I felt good about that. I mean, you will have children falling through the cracks. You know, I've had some of my kids who got killed and so on. But the successes, you know, is that you don't get money really for teaching, but the successes, seeing the kids do well, it makes you feel good.
And principal experience?
You know, strangely, I prefer the classroom rather than the office. It is easier to deal with children than adults. Adults are very, very difficult to deal with. But I've been able to mentor quite a number of young teachers. Right? There's one right now who I have been encouraging to go for the principalship. You know, she's a leader. And I watch that young lady grow. And it makes me feel good to see her taking on. She's now the acting senior teacher of the school. It makes me feel good, you know, mentoring those young teachers.
Mm-hmm. And now I want to hear the most important part. Your journey as a student. Start from the beginning to the end.
Well, I mean, what I'll tell you, growing up very poor, not knowing where your meal's coming from, right? But, you know, the African proverb says it takes a village to raise a child. My village raised me to ensure that I got everything. I mean, I never lacked a book. of course, in those days, I don't know if Stephanie would remember that, going to school barefoot in the countryside and walking in the grass, you want to walk on the pitch, so in those days, you're greasing your foot and thing. Those are the days, you're going to school. But I never stayed away from school because I didn't have anything. I always got exactly what I needed. I mean, I tried to skip school and thing to do nonsense, but the rod kept me in school, right? When I passed common entrance, my standard 5 teacher bought all my books, all my Form 1 books, and I had my cousins sewing my school uniform and a lot of hand-me-down books and so on. So I never stayed away from school because I didn't have. Somebody always had to. My parents didn't have, but somebody in the village always had something to give me. And that's why I made it. And a lot of the elderly folks encouraged me to study. A lot of the elderly folks, they would point out to me how hard my father in particular was working. And, go and take your book, study, make your father proud. That was all, that would have been drummed into my head. Do this, do that. There was no time for, I used to lie a lot. But sometimes, when the guys, fed up of the young fellas on the block, hey, go home and pick up a book, do something, make sure. And we were always, guided by the older guys. The older guys never really encouraged us to lie on the block. Go do something. Do something useful. Especially me. They always wanted to make sure I do. I don't know why, but they singled me out for special treatment, so to speak. I couldn't lie as I wanted to lie. Go home and do something. I remember a night, I was in Form 4, and we went a week, and we were drinking, gambling and drinking, and there was this old man, and he looked at me, he said, come, I want to talk to you. In those days when an elderly person called you, you had to go, and you had to listen. You couldn't talk back. And he was watching a group of us drinking alcohol, playing cards and drinking alcohol. And he singled me out to talk to. So what is that you're doing there? What you're putting in your body? That is food for your brain. And he went to town on me, showed me what alcohol did to him and his family. And he gave me one of the longest lectures. All I had to do was bend my head and say, yes, sir, yes, sir, no, sir, yes. And that was the last night I ever tasted a drop of alcohol. From listening to that over. Never tasted another drop. A lot of my friends have died from liver cirrhosis and so on because they went on to drink. And in those days, I never thought about Christ and Christianity. And it was just this old man that I have to say is God used to set me right, because I used to drink heavy. And he, out of all the young boys, you come in. That had to be God. In them days I didn't really believe in God, but it had to be God. You come here. And that lecture, that set me straight.
That set you straight?
Yeah. And I settled down and studied. In those days we had no electricity. So I studied by pitch oil lamp.
Oh, no street light? Or you had street light back then?
Yeah, we had street light, but I studied by pitch oil lamp. My father would wake me up in the morning when he got up to make his coffee and his breakfast. He would wake me up. And I would study. And if I had to study and do an all-nighter, he would make black coffee. No, if you don't want to sleep, well, you're Adventist, so you wouldn't drink black coffee. But black coffee will keep you awake. And he'd make it as black as no milk. And I would stay awake studying. And he would sit there and make sure that I study. Yeah.
So that was your secondary school, university?
Well, university, I was on my own. When I did teacher training, I was married, and in university I was on my own. But the discipline that I got from a child, right, especially my days at secondary school, that helped me through teacher training, college, and university. It was the same routine. Sometimes I do an all-nighter, sometimes I go to bed by 10, get up at 1, and go right through the morning. Right? There was never a problem with me studying. I used to mix it because I love to lie. So I'd go cricket, I'd do whatever, but I set aside time to study. Or I budgeted my time. I always encourage students, budget your time. Just as you budget your money, budget your time. Right? You're studying, I'm going to come home at so and so time, I'm going to eat. I'm going to go and exercise. I'll come, I'll sleep. And I'd get up, you set your alarm. And sometimes, I didn't even have to set it. It was like something mechanical. At 1 o'clock, I'm up. So I'd go until 6, bathe, go to work. It became a routine. Sometimes, and it's very rare, I would do an all-nighter. I'd go all night and, 5 o'clock in the morning, I still study. I would budget my time. So, I was never harder at school because I got enough time to sleep. I was told, I'm not a scientist, but I was told the hours before midnight is the best hours to sleep. Mm-hmm. And so I would sleep before midnight. I would come home if I have an assignment to do, try to look it up early. And by 10 o'clock, I hit the sack. And if I get up 1 o'clock, I could study until 7 o'clock the next morning and go to work. And I never used to feel, harder and drained. And so I would go and do my work and come home. Or go back to university in the afternoon. And, because I had a routine. And it worked for me. I budgeted my time. That is one of the things I do. I was told by a lecturer that you budget money. You're spending this for X, that, and you'll see, you put this in an envelope, X in this envelope, Y, and do the same thing with your time. And you will see how, you will find people say that the day should have more than 24 hours. No, if you budget your time, you'll have enough time.
So what do you advise your students? Any students who sign this new upcoming term, what advice you give them?
Secondary or primary?
Let's say secondary and primary.
Okay. In primary school, the parents have to be more involved with the kids. Primary school children are not as disciplined as we will hope they would. They need the guidance of parents. Parents must play an integral part in getting their children to study. But secondary, as you enter Form 2, especially Form 2, by then you should have the discipline to study, to start budgeting your time for study. You will find time to play. You must be physical. You will find time for that. But putting the books and so on, studying, set aside specific time for that. If you don't do that, you will be in trouble. It's about planning. Everything is about planning. If you don't plan, you're in trouble.
And how about university students? That's a critical area.
Well, teamwork. I believe in teamwork in university, but you have to know who you're working with. You have to get somebody who will complement you in terms of study. You will have the same work ethic. Share information, do all information, because you grow as you share. Right? You look for a partner, starting university, look for a study partner. It's always important to have. It is one, when I did the masters, there were 4 of us. The big 4, right? 4 of us. Pastor St. Bernard, Pastor Braffett, and Ray Taylor, Pastor Taylor, and myself. I was the only non-pastor in this thing. But we complemented each other. Albert was Pastor Braffett, he was the IT man. Sam, he would do the graphics. Ray would write up stuff. I would do research. And it was, and the presentation. I would do the presentation as well. And Albert would also present. But we complemented each other. And when I did the bachelor's, I had a group, we worked well together. And all of us became principals from that group. All of us became principals. And I think all of us are retired by now. Yeah, all of us are retired. But we worked well together. So you look for people, not people who will sponge, because there are those who will sponge, who will just soak up everything and do give out any. But you look for people who will work with you. And you will do well. Don't hoard. Hoarding, when you share ideas, you grow. It's about sharing, you grow. And again, plan your time.
And spiritual advice, the most important part.
Well, you put God first in everything. I believe in prayer. I may not be praying as fervently as I used to a long time, but I believe in prayer. In everything, because the Bible says, if you lack wisdom, ask God. Right? And there are times, I would be grappling with something. I'm trying to write a paper, and I don't even know how to start. I say, God, I put it on this thing. I put it in it. and you will give me the inspiration. And I would go and lie down, and sometimes between sleep and wake, I'm seeing the paper, the thing coming to me, and I will just jump up and start to write. And that is God giving me, because I will forget the paper, I say, look, God, I can't listen now. And I dropped. I fight it up all the time, and I tear up paper, I scrap it up. I said, now put it up. And I'll go and lie down, just lie down and relax, and sometimes I'm dozing off. And the thing just comes, and I'm seeing the thing clear. So that's the inspiration that I get from God, because I believe that God is the author of wisdom, right? And without Him, you can't really succeed. I owe God placed the right people in my life at the right time. The right people. I could have been a bum. When I went to, let me tell you something. When I left working with the Adventist board, right? My dad had just died. And I was going through divorce, and I had a big afro and big beard and all kind of thing. And I fell out with the conference. We had a disagreement over my divorce, and so I said, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to beg, because it's one thing, I grew up poor, but I grew up proud. I'm not begging for anything. So I decided to leave working with the church. They had given me a bursary, and they were not giving me what I felt I was entitled to. So I said, I'm going to leave. And I left. I wrote them a letter of resignation, not knowing whether I have a job or not. Now, I had done an interview years before with the government. I've done that just for interviewing sake. I just went. And they didn't call me or anything. And I decided to go. The ministry was in St. Clair, Ministry of Education. I went. But I was looking disheveled. I just lost my dad, and just going through divorce, and having my running back in the church that I believed in this church. I believed in Christian education. And I felt let down by the administration. And so I was not looking good. And I walked into the lady's office, personal primary, and I'm talking to this lady. I'm seeing the lady's face. And she's looking at me with a very quizzical expression on her face. And she's asking me questions, and I'm answering. And I told her about the interview that I did some years ago. And she went through the file and she saw it. And as she was about to dismiss me from her office, because I would later learn that she found I wasn't looking good, I saw Pastor Peter's wife, same Leandra Peter's mother, where she has died a few years ago. So I told the window, and I said, Patricia works here? So the lady said, well, you know Patricia? I said, oh yeah, of course, I taught her children. And she peeped through the window and she called Patricia. And they put me out there, so I don't know what they talk about. And then Patricia said, Matthew, come to my office. So I walked down the corridor and she began to talk to me. She said, listen, the lady I'm talking to, I can't remember the lady's name. And she's saying, but he sounds intelligent, but he looks like a bum. And I am not prepared to unleash this on the nation's children. Right? And the Sister Peters had to explain to her what I was going through. And then she said, look, next time you come to the people list, dress better than that. It doesn't matter what condition your mind is. You're coming for a job. You're not looking like a professional. She had to tell the lady who I am and the impact I've had on the children and so on. And then the lady called me back and gave me my letter of appointment to go to. I almost didn't get the thing. But Patricia Peters walked in on the compound at the right time, because the lady was about to put me out of office. What you doing here? She said, I didn't look like a teacher. She said, he sounds like a teacher, but he doesn't look like one. He looks like a bum. Where he came from, and it comes down to, when I became principal, I thought about all of that, and I had a conversation with Pat, and I had to thank her for being there. But yeah, she said, if God put her there at that particular time for me to see. Yeah, and that's why I went government and became a principal. So it's God leading.
So put God first.
Yeah, always.
Okay. Well, viewers, what's your name again?
Matthew Alexander.
Matthew Alexander, retired principal for how much years?
Retired educator, 42 years.
Retired educator, 42 years.
Yes, and principal 6 for 50.
Right. Thank you. Yes. Retired educator, 42 years. Right. Well, I don't really have much to say for a comment on this story. Besides, well, this is something that you notice in his and all the other lessons. Put God first. That's the first thing from a very young age. Even before he knew God, as he knew God now, how the influence from the young, from the old man warning him about the drinks and even from the right and from the other influences in his life, put God. He always learned to put God first. Or even the case with his paper, where he went and prayed. That happened a few times. I think it happened to me a few times already. Just pray, or sometimes in an exam and you have a little block, you pray and all of a sudden you block on you went on with the exam. So put God first in everything. God always pulls you through. Right? And next thing, well, the most humorous thing, be careful how you well, this is not for teachers. I might even say for interview, but always watch how you dress and how you approach people. The man nearly lost out on his job because he looked like a bum. Luckily, he had a friend who knew who he was, but the lady he was interviewing, he looked like a bum, and it still have me humorous. It still have me laughing a little bit, and I wasn't prepared to unleash him onto the nation's children. So, but regardless, that really was an impactful story. A good whole overarching from his teaching experience to his school and everything. And it really takes a village to raise a student. And we should remember that as a church body, as a church family as well, and even into a community family, that we must look out for each other and even look out for our youths who sometimes may be struggling, but we want to share it sometimes. They offer yourself sometimes as a avenue. Give them advice, give them guidance, right? As a young person, always appreciate well, from a young person perspective. For the older folks, they never underestimate the influence you have on young people, right? So we have reached the end of our program, and there's a few key points. Really, put God first. That's the first thing. In everything you do, put God first. Find a balance when everything you do. Don't make yourself lean to one side. Don't turn yourself into when you're a bookworm with no experience. Find a balance. Do what you like. Right? I know sometimes they may say parents say, "Oh, I only want doctors and engineers." Do what you like to do. Right? If you do what you like to do, there'll never be a day at work. Even if you're tired, they'll be like, "Yeah, just enjoy doing my hobby." Right? Do what you like to do. Study what you like. Right? As well as as for teachers, always make sure to motivate, give your students a motivation to do work because you know they can carry a lot further than you think. And from Uncle Don, it's never too late to achieve your dreams. If you're sitting down in your 20s, right, and you still say and you still want to become a doctor, you never know. Maybe you might start. Everybody's lives have a different pace, and not everybody's life is the same. Different paths, as I said, different as you go in education, you may cover different paths for your life. What may be a path for John may be a different path for Harry. So you have to remember that. Anyway, we have reached the end of our program. So I like to bow your heads as we go for closing prayer. Right, our heads bows and eyes closed. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us on if I program, Lord. Help us to remember in all our journeys, education is to put you first, and to trust in your word, and trust in you and your word, and continue to build all the new students and new educators as they go into new school term and help them to never forget you, even in the midst of the storm, Lord. In your name, amen. So you're now reaching our program, and we'll close off with a song entitled Jesus Will from a group called Amplify.